There are seasons in life when you look at your goals and feel overwhelmed by how far they seem. You want change. You want clarity. You want progress. You want stability. You want to finally move in a direction that feels right for your life. But when you look at the distance between where you are and where you want to be, your heart becomes heavy. Your mind becomes tired. Your motivation fades before the first step is taken. And yet, here is a truth that can transform everything. You don't need a year to change your life. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need the perfect conditions, the perfect timing, or the perfect version of yourself. You just need 3 months. 3 months of intention. 3 months of direction. 3 months of quiet discipline. 3 months of becoming someone who shows up for their own future. 3 months is not too long to feel impossible, and not too short to feel insignificant. It's the perfect container for real transformation, because in 3 months, your habits can shift, your mindset can evolve, your momentum can rebuild, your identity can strengthen. You can go from scattered to focused, from uncertain to grounded, from overwhelmed to directed. 3 months can give you what years of trying never delivered, because 3 months demand commitment, not perfection. They require presence, not miracle. They ask for daily action, not emotional fireworks. And the truth is simple. A 3-month plan doesn't change your life by being big. It changes your life by being doable. It takes the weight off your shoulders and brings your attention back to what you can do today, what you can do this week, what you can do right now. It removes the pressure of forever and replaces it with the clarity of a season. In 3 months, a seed can become a plant. A habit can become a rhythm. A decision can become a turning point. A person can become someone they barely recognize in the best way. So let's begin this journey gently, not with intensity, not with speed, not with impossible expectations, but with the quiet understanding that 3 months of honest effort can open doors you thought were locked. 3 months can reveal a version of you you have been trying to meet for years. And as we enter this journey, there is something important to remember. Every transformation begins with a single moment of clarity. The moment you decide you are ready to become someone new. And the next truth you'll discover is that the first month of your 3-month plan is not about action. It's about clearing the noise that has kept you stuck. The first month is not about acceleration. It's not about speed. It's not even about results. The first month is about clearing the noise that has been suffocating your direction. Because before you can build anything, you need space. You need clarity. You need internal order. Most people fail, not because they lack discipline, but because their mind is too crowded to know where to begin. Too many unfinished tasks. Too many competing priorities. Too many expectations. Too many fears. Too many voices. You don't need more motivation. You need room to breathe. Month 1 is where you step back from the chaos inside you and begin to clean the emotional dust that has settled over your purpose. You look at your life with gentle honesty, not judgment, not pressure, not perfection, just honesty. You ask yourself, what have I been carrying that no longer belongs in my next chapter? Because clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. Clarity comes from removing what drains you. Month 1 is about subtraction, removing what is heavy, removing what is outdated, removing what is distracting. You simplify your commitments. You simplify your goals. You simplify your environment. You simplify your expectations. Not to do less, but to make space for what truly matters. You begin to see that your life has been cluttered, not by lack of desire, but by lack of direction. And direction appears when you clear the path. Month 1 is like tending a garden that has been ignored for too long. You pull the weeds. You remove the dead branches. You create space for sunlight to reach the soil again, because without this first step, nothing you plant will grow. This is why the first month rarely feels productive on the surface, but it is transformative beneath it. You're removing the habits that drain your energy. You're releasing the expectations that don't belong to you. You're stepping away from the noise of comparison. You're clearing the emotional weight that makes simple tasks feel impossible. And slowly, something quiet begins to happen. Your mind becomes lighter. Your heart becomes clearer. Your decisions become cleaner. You begin to feel that inner shift, that soft alignment that tells you something in you is finally making space for growth. You stop rushing. You start seeing. You start understanding why your past attempts failed. You were trying to build a future on top of a crowded mind. But this time is different. This time you are clearing the foundation. This time you are preparing the soil. And once the noise fades, you begin to hear something you had forgotten to listen to: your own direction. And the next truth you'll discover is this: Month 2 is where movement begins. Not with pressure, but with intentional action that aligns with the space you just created inside you. Month 2 is where movement begins. Not rushed, not forced, not fueled by fear or the pressure to change quickly. Movement begins the moment your inner space has been cleared enough to know what actually matters. Because once the noise fades, your steps become clearer. Your choices become simpler. Your direction becomes quieter but stronger. Month 2 is not about intensity. It's about intention. This is the month where you stop thinking about change and start living it. One small action at a time. Not dramatic action. Not perfect action. Just honest, consistent action. Because the most powerful progress often begins with the smallest steps. You don't transform your life with heroic effort. You transform it by doing the next right thing again and again until it becomes part of you. Month 2 is about building momentum you can sustain, even on the days when your energy is low and your emotions are unpredictable. This is where you learn that action does not depend on how inspired you feel. Action depends on how aligned you are with the person you want to become. And alignment is quiet, steady, stable, the kind of movement that doesn't exhaust you, but strengthens you. In month 2, you choose a handful of actions that reflect the life you want to build. Not 20 habits, not a full schedule, not an overwhelming routine, just a few simple commitments that guide your day toward meaning. A morning moment of clarity, a small daily task connected to your goal, a gesture of discipline when you don't feel like it, a decision that honors your new direction. These small actions begin to create a rhythm that suggests you are finally moving forward. And when your steps are small, they become repeatable. Consistency thrives, not in pressure, but in simplicity. You begin to realize that the life you want is not built in a single leap, but in a long sequence of quiet follow-through. Month 2 teaches you the beauty of momentum, how once you start moving, even gently, your mind becomes clearer, Your energy becomes steadier. Your identity becomes stronger. You stop seeing change as a mountain you must climb, and start seeing it as a path you walk. One step at a time, you begin to trust yourself more, not because you feel confident, but because you're showing up. Showing up for your routines, showing up for your goals, showing up for the future you said you wanted. Month 2 reshapes your identity in ways you don't always notice, until one day you look back and see that you've moved farther than you thought possible. And just when this movement begins to feel natural, another truth arrives. Month 3 is where the shift deepens. It's where your actions begin turning into identity, and your progress begins turning into transformation. Month 3 is where everything begins to settle into a deeper part of you. The first month cleared the noise. The second month created movement. But the third month is where transformation takes root, because this is the moment when your actions stop feeling like tasks and begin to feel like truth. The truth of who you're becoming, the truth of what you're capable of, the truth of the life you are quietly building, one decision at a time. Month 3 is not about adding more pressure or increasing your pace. It's about strengthening the identity that has been forming beneath every small commitment you've honored along the way. Identity isn't built in a day. It's built in repetition, in consistency, in the thousands of tiny choices that align with your future instead of your past. This month teaches you that habits become identity when they are repeated long enough to feel natural, even on difficult days. It's the month where something powerful happens. You stop trying to become the person you want to be, and you begin to feel like that person. You wake up with more clarity. You act with more confidence. You follow through with more stability, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Month 3 is about anchoring that strength, anchoring your progress, so it doesn't fade the moment emotions shift or challenges appear. Anchoring your discipline, so it remains steady long after the initial momentum passes. Anchoring your purpose, so it becomes the voice you follow naturally, without forcing yourself. In this month, your actions are no longer motivated by the excitement of beginning or the fear of failing. They are motivated by a deeper sense of alignment, the understanding that the person you are becoming is worth the effort. You begin to see that progress is no longer fragile. It's becoming part of you. You recognize the patterns that once pulled you backward, and you no longer fall for them so easily. The excuses that once felt convincing now feel weak. The distractions that once controlled you now feel irrelevant. The doubts that once stopped you now feel small. Why? Because identity has more power than motivation. Identity outlives mood. Identity outlives fear. Identity outlives resistance. And month 3 is where your identity begins to speak, louder than your old habits. You start choosing what aligns with your growth. Almost instinctively, you begin to protect your peace without guilt. You begin to guard your time without hesitation. You begin to honor your standards without apologizing for them. This is the month where the work you've done begins to shape the way you think, the way you act, and the way you respond to life. It's the month where consistency becomes character. It's the month where discipline becomes natural. It's the month where your future begins to recognize you, because you're finally becoming the person who can hold it And once this new identity has taken root, there is a deeper truth to explore. Month 4 doesn't exist, because after 3 months of alignment, you no longer need a plan. You've become the kind of person who moves forward without waiting for permission from your emotions. But before we close this journey, there is still more to understand. The deeper emotional shift that makes this 3-month season one of the most transformative decisions you will ever make. There is something powerful about a 3-month season, not because of the number itself, but because of what it creates in your mind and in your heart. 3 months is long enough to create real change, but short enough to feel possible. It doesn't trigger overwhelm. It doesn't ask for perfection. It doesn't pressure you with the weight of forever. It simply gives you a season, a window in time you can hold, you can see, you can commit to, without fear. 3 months reduce the noise. They remove the panic of urgency and the illusion of infinite time. They give structure to your desire for progress, because when a goal is too big, your mind freezes. When a plan is too long, your heart disconnects. When a timeline is vague, your discipline weakens. But when you say, "I will give myself 3 months," something inside you settles. You feel grounded. You feel calm. You feel focused. Because 3 months is not a lifetime. It's a commitment your current self can handle. It becomes easier to show up today because you're not overwhelmed by the idea of showing up forever. 3 months teach your mind to feel safe with discipline, safe with change, safe with consistency, safe with becoming someone new. Your brain understands seasons. Your heart responds to cycles. Your energy moves in waves. 3 months. Respect that rhythm. It's enough time for your nervous system to adapt to new habits. Enough time for your emotions to adjust to responsibility. Enough time for your identity to begin shifting without collapsing under pressure. And something even deeper happens. A 3-month season gives your life structure. Structure gives your mind order. Order gives your heart peace. Peace gives your discipline strength. This is why your 3-month plan works. It aligns with how humans naturally change. We don't transform through sudden intensity. We transform through sustained alignment. Not by pushing harder, but by showing up consistently. Not by overwhelming ourselves, but by focusing on what matters. Not by rushing, but by moving with intention. 3 months give you the perfect space to evolve without breaking. It's long enough to see the results of your effort, and short enough to stay emotionally connected to the process. And when you allow yourself to fully embrace this season, you begin to realize something else. You don't need to control everything. You don't need to know every step. You don't need to predict the outcome. You just need to honor the season, because seasons change you if you commit to them. And the next truth you'll discover is this: a 3-month plan works best when you learn to honor the small daily decisions, the ones that look insignificant, but build the foundation for everything you want. When people think about change, they imagine something big, a dramatic breakthrough, a powerful shift, a moment of intensity that suddenly transforms their life. But real change rarely works that way. Transformation doesn't come from a single powerful action. It comes from hundreds of quiet decisions that most people overlook. Small daily commitments hold more power than any burst of motivation ever will. Because motivation fades, inspiration disappears, emotion changes by the day. But small commitments, the ones you repeat, even when you don't feel like it, those are the ones that reshape your future. This is where the 3-month plan becomes truly effective. It's not built on grand gestures. It's built on micro steps that are so simple you can sustain them no matter how you feel. A 5-minute routine, a moment of reflection, a single productive action, a quiet decision that aligns with your goal. These small choices become the threads that weave the new version of who you are becoming. Because every time you follow through, even in a small way, you reinforce a message within you. I am someone who shows up. I am someone who values my growth. I am someone who honors my future. And with each repetition, your identity begins to shift. Small daily actions don't just create progress, they create belief. Belief in yourself. Belief in your capacity. Belief in your direction. This belief is what sustains discipline long after the excitement fades. Because once you believe, you can follow through. You stop negotiating with your excuses. Month after month, these small commitments begin to accumulate, and the accumulation is where the magic happens. One day, you realize you're calmer, more focused, less reactive, more intentional, not because life became easier, but because you became grounded. In the smallest parts of your day, you begin to trust the process. Not because you see huge results, but because consistency feels like strength. You begin to understand that greatness is not built in hours. It's built in moments. Moments where you choose to act instead of avoid. Moments where you choose to take one step instead of waiting for motivation. Moments where you choose alignment over emotion. This is why your plan works, because it relies on what is small enough to do daily, but powerful enough to change your direction entirely. And as these small commitments become part of your life, another truth rises within you. Your future depends far more on what you do consistently than on what you do intensely. And that realization leads us into the next step. Understanding how consistency turns into rhythm, and rhythm turns into momentum, and momentum turns into transformation. There comes a moment in every season of growth where your small daily actions begin to link together. At first, they feel separate. A choice here, a moment there, a quiet effort that no one sees, and you're not sure will matter. But then something shifts. Your actions start to connect. Your days start to align. Your choices start to make sense in a deeper way. Consistency begins to form rhythm, and rhythm is one of the most powerful forces in personal growth. Rhythm gives your life structure. Rhythm steadies your emotions. Rhythm calms your mind. Rhythm guides your attention. It's no longer random effort. It's no longer desperate intention. It's no longer hoping to be disciplined. It becomes movement, a steady, grounded movement that carries you forward with less resistance than ever before. This is where momentum is born. Momentum doesn't start dramatically. It starts quietly. You wake up one morning and realize you no longer need to convince yourself to get started. You no longer waste energy debating whether you should act. You no longer feel overwhelmed by what once felt impossible. Your habits start pulling you forward instead of holding you back. Momentum doesn't require more strength. It requires less friction, and friction disappears when your actions become familiar, predictable, and aligned with your inner direction. This is why your 3-month plan is so powerful. The first month creates space. The second month creates movement. But the third month is where movement turns into momentum, and momentum turns into identity. When you reach this stage, you begin to see something clearly. You aren't fighting yourself anymore. You aren't dragging your mind through resistance. You aren't drowning in emotional hesitation. You're flowing. You're moving. You're becoming. Momentum is a form of grace, a soft lift that rises inside you and helps you move with more ease than you thought possible. Not because the path is easy, but because you are no longer in conflict with your own growth. You're aligned. You're steady. You're consistent. This is the moment where most people start to feel hope again. Not the fragile kind. Not the kind that depends on circumstance. Not the kind that disappears when life becomes difficult. A grounded hope. The kind that rises from seeing yourself show up day after day, even when it wasn't easy, even when no one was watching, even when you could have chosen otherwise. This hope is the foundation of long-term transformation, because when you trust your rhythm, you trust your path, and when you trust your path, you no longer fear the distance. Your 3-month plan is no longer a challenge. It's a companion, a structure that carries you toward a future that finally feels possible. And the next truth you'll discover is this: momentum becomes unstoppable when you learn to protect your energy and guard the progress you've built with so much intention. As your momentum grows, another truth becomes clear. Progress is not just something you build. Progress is something you must protect, because the same forces that once held you back will try to return the moment you start moving forward. Old habits, old distractions, old excuses, old environments, old emotions, old patterns of thinking. They don't disappear just because you've grown. They wait for the moment when your guard is down. This is why many people break their momentum without realizing how it happened. They think progress was the challenge, but the real challenge is protecting the progress. Month 3 is where you learn to guard your energy the way you guard your goals. This is the stage where boundaries matter, where focus matters, where emotional protection matters, because momentum is powerful, but it is also delicate. So you begin to make choices that honor your growth, not your old habits. You become careful with the spaces you enter. You become selective with the people you allow near your mind. You become intentional with the activities that influence your energy, not from fear, but from respect. Self-respect. Protecting your energy is not about avoiding life. It's about choosing the life that aligns with who you're becoming. You begin to notice what drains you, what distracts you, what exhausts your attention, what pulls you away from the person you want to be. And you gently step back. No drama, no guilt, no explanation, just alignment. Because the more aligned you become, the more you realize how much your growth depends on what you allow into your space. You learn to say no to the unnecessary, no to overcommitment, no to emotional chaos, no to conversations that pull you backward, no to tasks that don't belong to your future, not because you're closed off, but because you're focused. protecting your energy, is protecting your direction. You begin to choose what nourishes your mind, what strengthens your discipline, what supports your peace. Maybe it's a quiet morning before the world wakes up. Maybe it's closing your phone for a few hours each day. Maybe it's limiting contact with the people who drain your spirit. Maybe it's keeping your environment clean, calm, and intentional. These small protections become shields for the identity you are building, because transformation doesn't only require effort, it requires preservation. Preserving your focus, preserving your energy, preserving your discipline, preserving your progress. And as you learn to guard what you've built, you discover something powerful. When you protect your energy, your growth accelerates. When you protect your focus, your decisions become clearer. When you protect your peace, your discipline becomes deeper. This is why month 3 is so transformative, because you're not just building momentum, you're learning to sustain it. And once you learn to sustain it, another truth rises within you. Stability doesn't come from doing more. Stability comes from being anchored in what matters most. And that realization leads directly into the next stage. Understanding how to stay anchored, even when life tests your progress. No matter how focused you become, no matter how strong your momentum feels, life will always test you, not to punish you, not to stop you, but to see whether your progress is built on emotion or on identity, because every journey of growth has moments where the world pushes back. A difficult day, a sudden setback, a wave of exhaustion, a moment of doubt, a situation that shakes your peace. These moments are not signs of failure. They're invitations to strengthen your foundation, to see whether your roots go deep enough to hold you steady when the wind rises. And this is where many people lose their way. They assume that difficulty means something is wrong, but difficulty often means something is right. It means you've stepped beyond who you used to be. It means you're entering territory your old habits cannot survive. It means life is giving you a chance to practice the stability you've been building. Growth is not tested in your best days. Growth is tested in your interrupted days. The days when you don't feel ready. The days when your emotions are loud. The days when your energy is low. The days when everything inside you wants to go back to what is familiar. Staying steady is not about being perfect. Staying steady is about not collapsing. The moment something feels hard, it's about breathing instead of panicking, pausing instead of quitting, taking one small step instead of surrendering to discouragement. It's about remembering that a bad day doesn't erase your progress. A heavy moment doesn't erase your identity. A setback doesn't erase your direction. What matters is how you respond, not with force, not with frustration, not with guilt, but with clarity, with grounding, with the understanding that every test is part of the journey. You stay steady by anchoring yourself in the habits you've built, even if your emotions are not cooperating. You stay steady by honoring your structure, even when motivation disappears. You stay steady by trusting the momentum you've already created, even when the day feels heavy. You stay steady by remembering that your plan is stronger than your mood. This is the beauty of a 3-month journey. It gives you a timeline that honors both your progress and your humanity. It allows you to make mistakes without losing direction, It allows you to slow down without falling apart. It allows you to be human without abandoning your transformation. Because steadiness is not the absence of struggle. Steadiness is the ability to keep moving through the struggle. This is where the deeper shift happens. This is where resilience forms. This is where you begin to see that your progress is no longer fragile. It has weight now. It has meaning. It has history. It has roots. And once you realize you can stay steady even when life tests you, the next truth becomes clear. Your future depends not only on momentum, but on the environment you create around it. And that leads us naturally to the next stage of your journey, learning how to shape the environment that supports your growth instead of sabotaging it. One of the greatest truths you discover in any season of growth is that your environment has more influence than your motivation ever will. You can have a strong desire to grow, but if your environment pulls you backward, your progress becomes a constant battle. You can have discipline, but if your surroundings drain your energy, discipline becomes harder than it needs to be. You can have clarity, but if your environment is filled with noise, distraction, or emotional chaos, your clarity gets buried. This is why the next step in your 3-month journey is learning to shape an environment that supports your direction, an environment that holds your momentum instead of breaking it, an environment that reminds you of who you're becoming, not who you used to be. Growth becomes easier when the world around you aligns with the world within you. Your environment is not just the space you live in. It's the atmosphere you create. It's the conversations you allow. It's the energy you tolerate. It's the habits you reinforce. It's the noise you silence. It's the order you choose. And most importantly, your environment is the reflection of your standards. Month 3 is the perfect time to elevate those standards. Not dramatically, not aggressively, not with perfection, just with intention. You begin to ask yourself, what kind of space helps me stay focused? What kind of people help me stay grounded? What kind of routines help me stay aligned? What kind of atmosphere helps me feel calm and capable? Then, quietly, you begin to remove what doesn't belong. You clear physical clutter to reduce emotional clutter. You create small pockets of order in the spaces where chaos once lived. You distance yourself from conversations that drain your peace. You choose music, sounds, and moments of silence that nourish your mind. You limit your exposure to negativity, comparison, and noise. You give yourself permission to choose environments that make it easier to become who you want to be. Your environment doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be supportive. A clean desk, a calm room, a quiet morning, a boundary with someone who constantly pulls you backward. These changes might seem small, but small environmental shifts create large internal shifts. Because when your environment no longer works against you, your discipline becomes lighter, your clarity becomes brighter, your focus becomes steadier, your momentum becomes stronger. You begin to notice that you're not fighting as much, you're not resisting as much, you're not drained as easily. Your environment starts doing some of the work for you. It carries you, it holds you, it supports you, it reminds you, it strengthens you. This is the part of growth most people overlook, but it's one of the most important, because change is not only about what you do, it's about where you do it, who you do it around, and what energy surrounds your process. And once you learn to shape an environment that honors your future, you open the door to a deeper transformation. You begin to understand that your success is not just created by effort, but by alignment, and alignment becomes the foundation for the next truth on your journey. Your plan will only grow stronger when you learn to align your emotions with the direction you've chosen. As you move deeper into your 3-month journey, you begin to understand something that most people overlook. Your emotions don't need to agree with your goals for you to move forward, but your emotions do need space to adjust to the direction you've chosen, because emotions are slower than decisions, slower than plans, slower than clarity, slower than discipline. Your mind can choose a new path in a moment, but your emotions need time to catch up. Most people try to rush this. They think something is wrong when their feelings don't immediately support the life they want to build. But nothing is wrong. This is how growth works. Your emotions are not the enemy. They are simply responding to the habits, identities, and patterns you've lived for years. So of course, they hesitate. Of course, they resist. Of course, they need time. Month 3 is where you learn to stop fighting your emotions and start guiding them, not by forcing them, not by ignoring them, not by pretending you feel something you don't, but by giving them a healthier direction to move toward. You begin to realize that emotional alignment is not about feeling positive all the time. It's about reducing the internal conflict between what you feel and what you want. You don't push your emotions aside. You listen to them without letting them lead. You acknowledge them without letting them decide. You understand them without letting them control the path. This is emotional maturity, the kind that doesn't silence emotions, but guides them gently toward the future you've chosen for yourself. You learn to say, "I hear you, but we're still moving. I know you're uncomfortable, but we're still growing. I know you're afraid, but we're still taking the next step." Your emotions soften, not because you suppress them, but because you stop expecting them to make you feel ready. Readiness is not an emotion. Readiness is a decision. And when your emotions see that your decisions are steady, consistent, and aligned with a real purpose, they slowly begin to cooperate. They stop fighting you. They stop pulling you backward. They stop amplifying your doubt. Instead, they begin to support your direction. Your feelings of resistance become feelings of respect. Your fear becomes caution, not paralysis. Your hesitation becomes awareness, not avoidance. This is emotional alignment, not perfect emotional harmony, but emotional cooperation. It's the moment when your inner world stops sabotaging your progress and starts supporting it. And it happens because you proved through daily action that this path is real. Your emotions believe your actions more than your intentions. And as you continue to show up day after day, your emotions begin to understand. This is who we are now, not the old version of you, not the anxious version, not the inconsistent version, not the version that starts strong and collapses under pressure. You are building a new identity, and your emotions are learning to trust it. And once your emotions start aligning with your direction, a deeper shift begins. Progress stops feeling like a battle. It starts feeling like cooperation. And cooperation is the foundation for the next truth. To reach the life you want, you must learn to act from clarity, not from chaos, not from fear, not from old emotional patterns. There is a moment in every journey of growth when you begin to notice a quiet difference inside yourself, a difference in how you choose, a difference in how you move, a difference in how you respond to the world around you. Because for most of your life, your actions were shaped by emotional chaos, by urgency, by fear, by stress, by insecurity, by trying to fix everything at once, by trying to outrun your own doubts. You acted not because you were aligned, but because you were overwhelmed. And action taken from chaos never leads you where you truly want to go. It feels rushed. It feels reactive. It feels unstable. It feels disconnected from who you really are. But as your 3-month journey continues, you begin to experience a different kind of action. Action born from clarity. Clarity is calm. Clarity is grounded. Clarity is steady. Clarity is quiet, but deeply powerful. When you act from clarity, your steps no longer feel frantic. Your mind no longer feels divided. Your emotions no longer feel in charge. You're not trying to escape something. You're moving toward something. You're not trying to fix your life. You're choosing to build it. This is the difference between chaos-driven action and clarity-driven action. Chaos pushes you. Clarity guides you. Chaos drains your energy. Clarity expands it. Chaos creates disorder. Clarity creates direction. Clarity doesn't mean you know the whole path. It simply means you know the next step that belongs to you. And that next step feels honest. It feels aligned. It feels like a quiet yes in your chest. Acting from clarity means letting go of the pressure to figure everything out today. It means slowing down just enough to hear your own truth, not the noise of comparison, not the pressure of expectation, not the weight of past failures, just your truth. Clarity is what remains when the noise falls away. And when you act from that place, your actions feel different. They feel intentional. They feel meaningful. They feel anchored in who you are becoming. This is why alignment is so essential in your 3-month plan. Because clarity isn't just a feeling. Clarity is an inner position. A posture of calm strength. A posture of grounded intention. A posture of, I know what matters now. When you reach this stage, something powerful happens. Your mind no longer jumps between dozens of possibilities. You choose one path, one direction, one priority. Your energy stops scattering into 1,000 distractions. It moves forward in a single, intentional line. This is the beginning of deep progress. Not progress measured by how much you do, but by how aligned you are with what you do. Clarity becomes your new leadership, your new compass, your new rhythm. And because your actions are now rooted in clarity, not chaos, you begin to see results that once felt completely out of reach. Results built, not by rushing, but by aligning, not by forcing, but by choosing, not by trying to feel ready, but by acting from truth. And as this clarity deepens, you begin to understand the next truth of your journey. You cannot transform by controlling everything. You transform by learning to release what no longer belongs to the person you're becoming. There is a part of transformation that almost no one talks about. The part where you must release what no longer belongs to you. Not with anger, not with regret, not with force, with understanding, with clarity, with quiet courage. Letting go is one of the hardest steps in your 3-month journey, not because releasing is painful, but because holding on feels familiar. We cling to old habits because they are predictable. We cling to old identities because they are comfortable. We cling to old emotions because they feel known, even when they hurt us. Letting go requires you to step into a version of yourself you haven't fully met yet, and that kind of transition can feel uncertain, even when it's exactly what your life needs. Growth asks you to release the weight you've carried for years, the habits that drain you, the stories that limit you, the excuses that protect you, the fears that blind you, the expectations that suffocate you, the identities that no longer represent you. Letting go is not about losing something. Letting go is about creating space for something better, space for new habits, space for new confidence, space for new clarity, space for new opportunities, space for a stronger identity, space for a calmer life. Every time you release something that belongs to your past, you make room for what belongs to your future. And yet, this process is delicate. You don't need to throw everything away at once. You don't need to force change. You don't need to rush the transition. Letting go is a slow untying, a gentle unclenching, a quiet decision to no longer carry what was never meant to stay. It is the moment you choose to stop repeating the patterns that keep you stuck. The moment you say, "This doesn't serve me anymore." The moment you realize you are not abandoning your past, you are honoring your future. And slowly, as you begin to let go, you feel lighter, not because life becomes easier, but because you're no longer dragging old versions of yourself into new chapters. Letting go is a form of discipline. Letting go is a form of clarity. Letting go is a form of emotional maturity. It means you trust the direction you're heading more than the comfort of where you've been. It means you're willing to sacrifice the safety of familiarity for the possibility of growth. And here's the truth: every meaningful transformation requires a moment of release. The moment you stop negotiating with who you used to be and fully commit to who you're becoming. This is the turning point. The moment when the past loses its grip. The moment when the future begins to breathe. The moment when space peers inside you for something new. And once you let go, something powerful happens. Your progress accelerates. Your clarity deepens. Your identity strengthens. Your emotions calm. Because letting go is not about losing control. Letting go is about reclaiming it. And with this liberation comes the next truth. To sustain your transformation, you must learn to build, not from pressure, but from purpose. When you reach this stage of your 3-month journey, you begin to understand something that changes everything. Real transformation doesn't come from pressure, comes from purpose. Pressure exhausts you. Purpose energizes you. Pressure creates anxiety. Purpose creates clarity. Pressure makes you rush. Purpose makes you focus. Pressure comes from fear. Purpose comes from alignment. Most of your past attempts to grow were driven by pressure. Pressure to change quickly. Pressure to not fall behind. Pressure to be someone you didn't yet know how to become. Pressure can force movement, but it cannot create stability. And stability is what you're building now. Purpose becomes the anchor that pressure never could be. Purpose doesn't shout. Purpose doesn't scare you. Purpose doesn't overwhelm you. Purpose whispers. Purpose guides. Purpose invites. Purpose aligns. Purpose says, "This is who you're becoming, and this is why it matters." When you build from purpose, your actions start to feel different. They are no longer reactive. They are intentional. They are no longer chaotic. They are grounded. They are no longer driven by insecurity or fear. They are driven by clarity and truth. Purpose is not about intensity. Purpose is about direction, quiet direction that shapes you from within. This is why month 3 is so important. You're no longer acting because you feel pressured to change your life. You're acting because you feel connected to the reason behind your growth. Your purpose is what reminds you to show up even when the day is heavy. Your purpose is what stabilizes you when your emotions fluctuate. Your purpose is what helps you choose the long-term vision over the short-term comfort. And purpose doesn't require perfection. It requires honesty. Honesty about what you truly want. Honesty about what matters to you. Honesty about what you're capable of. Honesty about the kind of life you are ready to create. Purpose simplifies your decisions. It reduces inner conflict. It silences distractions. It strengthens your identity. Because when you act from purpose, you stop asking, "Am I motivated?" Instead you ask, "Is this aligned with the life I'm creating?" And that question changes everything. It turns discipline from something heavy into something meaningful. It turns resistance into direction. It turns uncertainty into clarity. It turns your 3-month plan from a goal into a path that feels honest, a path that feels possible, a path that feels grounded in who you truly are. And once you begin building from purpose instead of pressure, you unlock the final phase of your transformation, integrating everything you've learned into a way of living that doesn't depend on motivation, but on identity, clarity, and inner stability.